This is your reality check.
Hi everyone, and welcome to The Reality Check, the Canadian show that explores a wide range of controversies and curiosities using science and critical thinking. I'm your host, Darren McKee, and with me, as usual, is Adam Gardner.
What's up, IQ-boids?
We have a great show for you today. It's actually just a few days after the 17-year anniversary of the first release of our shows.
Amazing.
Yes. Started way back in 2008. I was not a part of the crew at that time, but there were others at the time. Adam was there.
That's right.
Back at the beginning. Mm-hmm. And I think you recorded about 5 episodes, 4 or 5, and then you released them all in September in 2008.
Yeah, there was like an episode 0, and then we skipped a number. But this was the day that was the day, I think it was the 6th, where we launched our first episodes.
If you were there at the beginning or with us since then, please write in. That'd be a curiosity.
Oh, yeah.
My own little scientific curiosity. Mm-hmm. We have a bit of a different show today. I'm going to lead a discussion about the depiction of intelligence in fiction.
And I'll be offering commentary as someone who dabbles in intelligence and enjoys fiction.
So this segment has come about because I was revisiting the classic sci-fi book Ender's Game. It came out in 1985. I believe I listened to an audio recording about 20 years ago.
Wow.
Which was the 20th anniversary edition that was released. And I re-listened to it, and it is excellent. Really excellent. And I mentioned Adam that's excellent. And then he happened to say, oh, you know, those Ender's books. I think it was my father. What did your father say?
So my father basically said when he read those books, he was kind of surprised that it was the best portrayal of intelligence or an intelligent kid that he'd ever seen in fiction, which basically means they always get it wrong except for this one. That's his way of saying it. You know?
Right. And I was then reflecting about how they depict intelligence in fiction. Mm-hmm. I finished Ender's Game and the sequel, Speaker for the Dead, and then a couple of sci-fi books, and then just thinking about different movies and whatnot. So it's really just a free-flowing conversation about how it's difficult to depict intelligence in fiction and how they tend to do it. First, broadly, when I was thinking about how intelligence at all is shown in various fiction, and by fiction, I'm probably thinking TV and movies, but of course, books as well. It's usually a lot of cultural tropes and stereotypes. Yeah. So if there is kind of a quote-unquote geeky, nerdy-looking person that has less physical acuity, it's thought that this person is more intelligent.
Yep.
When you think of a really intelligent person in fiction, you're like, oh, the really muscular guy? Or the guy with the charming personality and great hair and he knows how to do everything? Not so much. At least not North American. I want to stress that. Mm-hmm. I mentioned this to a different friend, and they said they were watching some Taiwanese show years ago, and the suave, charming, attractive guy did better on the test than like the nerdy looking guy.
Oh, that's funny.
And the attractive guy is like, oh, don't worry, I'll tutor you. So like you get to be better at everything apparently. And I think sort of culturally in certain places on Earth, perhaps Asian and even parts of Eastern Europe, if you don't do well on math stuff, it's because you didn't work hard enough.
Oh, okay.
And for us in North America, my brain just doesn't do that well. I just don't think like that. I don't have that brain. I'm not that way. So that's part of it. But then there's a lot of, again, prejudicial, somewhat racial things going on, right? Depending on the race, we might assume someone in our shows or movies is more intelligent or less. Typically, someone with glasses seem to be more intelligent. Someone who looks like they're dressed neatly. Again, this sort of is linked to intelligence. Baldness, sometimes. I guess because the brain is so strong, it's pushing the hair out. That's the only explanation.
Yeah.
Attractiveness, that can kind of go either way, right? There's also a kind of a heroes and a villains thing by the variable here at play, because villains are often perceived as less attractive unless they're, more diabolical, because then they're more alluring. So all I have to say is that there's a wide range of cues, which as soon as we see any character, you as the viewer, listener, reader, just have a sense of whether they're meant to be more intelligent or not. And you can do this by showing alien creatures of from our point of view, some alien creature, I guess it would be a thing, would be more or less say overweight or more or less tall or more or less wearing this and that. And people will rank these creatures, which they have no information about, using intelligence based on all the media they've gotten from North American stuff.
Oh, that's interesting. And it's funny you mentioned clothes, because I think it varies depending on context and a lot of things. But definitely in the 80s, it was the bow tie and the pocket protector and the whatever, the Revenge of the Nerds kind of look. Yes. Then in modern stuff, you kind of have the oh, you work in tech in Silicon Valley and you go to work in a hoodie and shorts and you go whatever. So there's different different ways of portraying it. And yeah, it depends, I guess. Yeah,
totally. And then, I guess John von Neumann wore 3-piece suits.
Yeah.
And the guys from The Big Bang Theory are wearing, printed tees.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
So when I was thinking about why it's difficult to show intelligence in fiction, there's two main reasons. And this is not necessarily revelatory, but I thought it was worth talking about nonetheless. One is that the author is not themselves usually a genius. This is when I'm talking about depicting highly intelligent characters.
Sure.
And the other one is that if a character acted like a true super intelligent person would, the audience would not understand them. Those are my two main thoughts. So we can unpack each of them. So, of course, it's easy for a narrator or an author to say a character is a genius, but it's much harder to write dialogue and actions that prove it. One of the most common writing maxims is show, don't tell. So the audience must be convinced of the character's intellect through their words, decisions, and problem-solving abilities. This requires the author themselves to possess a high degree of creativity and intellectual capacity, or at least have done a significant amount of research to make the character's insights feel genuine. So here, of course, there's an advantage because the author can work on the product many, many months or years, which then can truncate the abilities of the character in that moment.
I will pretend these 5 sentences it took me 3 hours to write he came up with them in 12 seconds.
Exactly.
Easy.
Exactly. But if you think of the difficulty of, let's say, problems to solve, well, the author can only operate at their level of capabilities. Maybe they, sort of phone a friend, bring in a consultant. Sometimes they do these on shows like, oh, here's the physicist, and they told us this is the thing, right?
Yeah.
Draw the right equation on the blackboard so it looks like it makes sense. But with this show, don't tell thing, it really is difficult because a character doesn't usually say, I'm so smart, SMRT, look at me, but they act in ways that other characters might describe them as smart. And like, oh, you wouldn't believe what that guy can do, blah, 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 blah. Oh, I can't believe he did that math problem. And so you learn from the contextual cues that character is really smart.
It's like when you have a magic show or something like that and you show the audience reaction to more convince the viewer that they should be impressed. So you use others to be impressed.
Yes,
so
exactly.
It's a nice way of looking at it.
And we're kind of blending the other one here. If someone acted like that, they wouldn't be understood. So how does fiction deal with this? Well, take some examples. So you have Sherlock Holmes, who supposedly has these awesome powers of deduction, and usually it's ahead of the reader or the audience, but then it's explained afterwards. And this is both in the stories, but especially in the show, they show his mind working very, very quickly. The music.
You're talking about the Sherlock show, the
Yes.
newer one? Okay.
Correct, with Benedict Cumberbatch. So the music goes faster, he's speaking more quickly, and they're quickly showing you how he was able to conclude what he did by all the information he took in. But in the moment, he just does the thing. And this is a way of trying to explain how he worked so quickly, so to speak. When he's speaking, yes, sometimes he's cryptic, sometimes he speaks in riddles, but he's almost normally conversational. Weird. Good Will Hunting, which is one of my favorite movies. Here you have a true genius in all the ways, it seems, academically at least. But he talks and acts like a drunken young man, basically.
Yeah.
So once in a while he recites something that you would only have esoteric knowledge of if you were a true genius, and he seems to have this, preternatural mathematical ability. But we're all told that through other characters. Like, unless you really know enough math, then you'd be able to understand what he's doing.
It's hard to demonstrate being good at math in movie form, right? You're going to multiply two numbers together really quick for me? Well, like, wow.
But even then, right, the audience will be like, is that a big deal?
Yeah.
What mathematical proof are the most audience members going to be like, oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Fermat's last theorem, really? No, it just doesn't work. So there has to be ways to try to communicate this information. Many years ago, a movie called Phenomenon came out with John Travolta.
Yes.
Remember liking?
Saw it in theaters.
Yeah, he gets certain powers of intelligence, and they do have a testing scenario, right, where he's sort of like an IQ test.
Brent Spiner.
Exactly, from the data. We'll bring that up in a moment. One of the examples is, name as many mammals as you can in 60 seconds. And he goes, well, how would you like that? How about alphabetically? Aardvark, baboon, caribou, dolphin, eagle, fox. And he just goes through the whole alphabet. And that is something that only a really, really intelligent person could do, or I guess someone who prepared for the test, right?
And almost anyone could write if you took like 20 minutes to do
Correct. But like in real time. Oh boy.
Yes.
It's like people who can do anagrams, like in conversation.
Oh, yeah,
It's
yeah.
staggeringly impressive.
Yep.
Again, there's a bit of like, how much are people practicing this versus they can just do it? But I'm sort of thinking of the world where a super intelligent person could, in general, just move through this space because it's like they would have practiced all these things. And then you have characters like Iron Man, who is supposedly a genius, but often acts just like an arrogant douche, except when he does the technobabble that shows he knows tech stuff. But even then, I see that as lots of hand waviness. But this is how it almost always is, right? When Batman is doing his thing and he's typing on his computer, he just seems to know how to do stuff. He's the world's greatest detective. Usually you don't see it. So there's kind of just he fiddled around with some stuff, and now we see this technology like the Iron Man suit, which is a remarkable piece of technical equipment which couldn't actually exist. Like, even with an arc reactor, I don't think it makes sense. But you're supposed to just accept it because it's a fantastical movie, and that's fine.
So with Iron Man, I guess because he's so, I don't know, maybe so socially capable, which is maybe something that real smart people might do, but they don't do often in movies. I just forget that he's supposed to be super smart most of the time. And then they'll do a weird scene where he's like, oh, didn't you do the reading or whatever? And you're like, oh, yeah. As opposed to like Reed Richards, but depending on the portrayal,
from the
Reed Richards always acting like a nerd, but always is being smart. So it's like you're constantly reminded that he's a smart guy. Whether that's written more realistically or not, right. I don't know. But that's just something that is more in your face, I guess, about the character.
Right. Well, and this kind of goes to personality intersecting with intelligence.
Yeah.
Because sort of attention, willingness to try, conscientiousness, these are factors that are going to at least affect what we perceive as intelligence. I don't remember enough of the depictions of Reed Richards, but my understanding is he's supposed to be one of the smartest characters in Marvel, which makes him smarter than Iron Man.
Yes.
And then, how is he coming across, right? So I just have other examples like Hannibal Lecter. He was a smart, scheming person. But going back to Ender and Ender's Game, I'm not going to spoil it, but it's a very sophisticated book in the sense of a psychological, introspective awareness that Ender has about thoughts and feelings and the thoughts and feelings of others, and can apply this strategically, seemingly relatively quickly. And that's what made it so, I think, rare, because most people don't do it that way. And it's not like he's talking about quantum physics or something most of the time, or using words that are very, very confusing. It's just that he seems to have a knowingness of both himself and others that was remarkable.
One interesting thing about that, and I feel it really comes across in the book, but in the movie, which was made somewhat recently, you don't get that because there's no internal dialogue, right? So you have to sort of infer the intelligence in the same way.
Yeah. And so if you think how can you demonstrate people being super smart in one way or the other, right? I'm a huge fan of Aaron Sorkin's stuff. He wrote The West Wing and some other things. And the characters there are known for speaking very quickly and very intelligently. And then I thought, well, in TV and movies, almost every character speaks far better than an average person might. They usually do not stutter. They don't mispronounce words.
Yep.
They don't ever go like, sorry, I wasn't clear. They just don't do this unless that's part of the script. And so you even have a character like Joey from Friends, or pick your favorite sitcom where there's a dumb character.
Yep.
Even when they're dumb, they speak well. And so it's sort of like, oh, wait a minute. The whole view of how intelligence is portrayed in all media is a bit skewed or problematic or confusing or not accurate. Because even when Joey's, making a error, a moo point versus a moot point, he again doesn't say, and he doesn't seem dumb. And then if we think of Homer Simpson, as Adam and I were talking about this earlier, how can this person function as a human? Like going to work, clothing and feeding themselves, all these sorts of things, if they were as dumb as they are, as we're shown sometimes that they are.
Yeah. I mean, it's a cartoon, so it's exaggerated to something ridiculous. But I think in Homer's case also, it's presented that he's extremely dependent on Marge, who is presented as occasionally having gaps in intelligence, but mostly an extremely capable person.
Yes. Going back to Friends, so Ross is supposed to be the smart scientist. But of course he often acts like a dumb person, just like the rest of them. He doesn't seem to be smarter than they do. The Big Bang guys, they're all smart physicists. And I think at least some of the time the dialogue in the show does reflect at least their scientific knowledge.
Yep.
But then they're playing up the emotional awkwardness and lack of emotional EQ for a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean, Big Bang, I have mixed feelings on the show. I think the laugh track is just too loud. It's occasionally funny. I think the portrayal of intelligent people is decent. You kind of get the sense that Leonard is sort of like the writer self-insert, so he's more capable than everybody else, and Sheldon's a little more there for jokes. But it's decent in that sense. But that's a different. Again, compared to the 80s, these are like, that's the modern geek that's into comics, it's into Dungeons and Dragons, it's into different things. And Bill Prady, the writer, he talks about he's writing about the friends he knew in college or university, whatever it was specifically. He was at TAM one year. He was like the keynote speaker and he talked about a lot of things. And I remember he got a little bit of flack because of something he said. I don't remember the specifics, but he talked about how Penny, who wasn't like one of the geniuses, was able to navigate the social world better than any of those guys, right? So that there was, so he kind of tries to present that sort of dichotomy in things. Realistically, that's not always the case. Some people are not intelligent and also socially terrible. Some people are intelligent and socially capable, and of course, some people are intelligent and socially awkward. Right?
Yes, that is very true. Yeah, things do correlate in certain ways, but there's no like definitive one way or the other. Mm-hmm. I mean, we also have the absent-minded professor trope. But it's not out of nowhere. Like Einstein was brilliant and he was seeing these things about space and time and traveling on the beam of light like no one else could, it seemed. And then he, didn't have to change for the bus because he didn't understand something at one point. Like, well, wait a minute. So maybe my ideas of realistic depictions are flawed because we have people who are super smart and highly incapable for more mundane tasks.
Yeah.
And I guess we weren't going to get into this. But when you think of people with savant-like abilities, then it is a remarkable ways in which humans and their brains can function, whether it's memorizing or understanding numerical stuff or learning languages very quickly or just the willingness to put the effort in. So there's this game, GeoGuessr. I'm not sure if you're aware about this, but you're given like an image on Google Earth. And, for some people, it's just the image. Other times you can walk around and you're trying to guess where this is on Earth. And there's a guy who's gotten more famous for this called Rainbolt. And he's just so good at it. It seems like it's fake.
It's incredible.
Because he spent so much time memorizing all these different images and he can just recognize them. It's more like pattern recognition. Right?
Yeah.
And I remember he kept getting burned on like Vancouver. And so,
why is that? It's just a very
something that just didn't sit because he didn't know it well enough and he kept thinking somewhere else. And so he's like, I memorized every photo of everybody. You're like, okay. So that's like, it's an intelligence, but the dedication to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Like most people they couldn't do it, but they wouldn't want to. They just would tap out, right?
Well, I remember seeing one. He's just like, they show him grass and he's like, oh, just the type of grass you could tell. Oh, but just look at the lighting in the sun. Boom, boom, boom. And he's within like 2 kilometers. Like, what did you do?
I know. The grade of sand looks like this part of the. It's very impressive. Mm-hmm. So this is obviously a meandering discussion here, but there's another book which I guess I want to talk a bit about without giving away too much about it. So I'm not going to tell you what the book is.
Okay.
But people get super intelligent abilities. Okay. And one of the ways this is communicated to the audience is that I listened to the audiobook. So when the narrator is reading the book, there's a part of the book where then the character realizes they now speak more quickly than they otherwise would. And they're talking to other character. And for about a paragraph, the narrator reads it more quickly. And I thought, yes, that is what it would be like if you were going to try to show what people are capable of. And they don't keep doing this because I think they probably thought, well, this is going to be annoying to people. Or if you already listen to it sped up a bit like I do, you have to like modulate up and down. Oh, that'd be such a pain.
You're at 8 times speed now, Darren. Can you keep up?
I couldn't. Or you're not ready for it, right? Like all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Well, and so this goes to the other part of it. Like, well, what would it mean to interact with genius level people? I think they would probably speak more quickly than usual. And they might even use short form. Like, any world that you inhabit has its own types of code words or acronyms that if you're not in it, you just can't follow along. It's not as clear. But there's a world where people just be using concepts that if you're familiar with that concept, you don't need the longer paragraph, and smarter people might just dance in and out of it, and it would just be confusing. Now, you could say, well, maybe that's a lot of just like cultural context versus true like conceptual brilliance context. But I think it could go through both because someone who is smarter could infer what's going on.
Yeah.
I guess my thought is that if fiction showed a really smart person, you just wouldn't understand why they're doing what they're doing, and they would just achieve their goals better. Because unless they're like, by the way, this is what I'm doing right now, and they explain it to you, which is why the fiction needs to do this, or someone else is explaining, like, how do they do this, and they work it out after the fact. It becomes very difficult to follow. Similarly, human audiences can only follow certain types of plot structures that are complicated. And certain movies, which are great, you're like, wait, what happened again? Why is this? Now, sometimes it's, the filmmaker trying to create a confusion in the audience one way or another, or they realize it's going to have to be seen more than once to pick up on all the clues. But I think other times, you just can't have something too sophisticated because people aren't going to follow it.
Yeah, that's fair. How much smarter than your audience do you want the writing to be? You still want it to be accessible unless you're writing for... specifically, you're an intelligent person writing for specifically intelligent people, right? Well, sometimes science fiction can come off like that, certain types, and it depends who's your audience.
Very much so. And like, are you trying to just show off like how smart you are? That can come off as awkward, right? Or implausible. But then again, people watch fiction because it's implausible. They want the story and they want the drama of it all. Now, I didn't watch Dawson's Creek, but from what I understand, they spoke far above their vocabulary level, verbal fluency.
It was also one of the early speaking really fast. I mean, Buffy did it a bit. it, but it's Kevin Williamson. He's the guy the showrunner of Dawson's Creek. And yeah, I watched a few seasons of that show. It was very much like The West Wing, where they would speak really quickly and they would just they'd say things like proverbial this and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, teenagers do not talk like that. Teenagers that look like this don't talk like that.
What do you mean? Like?
But Gilmore Girls is another like that. They talk very quickly in Gilmore Girls, like everybody, especially Rory and her mom, Lorelai. But yeah, I guess there's a lot of examples like that. I was like a trend for a while. I don't know if they're still doing that, but there's like a trend in TV of fast talking.
Puts out less material now.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
One of the big showrunners. And yeah, I think people sometimes they listen to podcasts sped up, slow down, whatever it is. I think some people think we talk too quickly, and probably other people think we don't. I probably try to slow down sometimes because my temptation is to speak quickly, but it doesn't help the listener understand things or actually receive a message. And it probably sounds like the speaker is more anxious versus
maybe
just getting information out more quickly.
Yeah, I know you listen to audio content at faster speeds. I don't. I did for a while. And my concern was I had heard from other people that they would get impatient with normal dialogue because they were used to that. So I didn't want that to happen to me. So I just stopped doing it. I always do single speed now.
It is harder to talk to people, I'll be honest. And if just as for your own psychological benefit, listener, if you ever tried this, try listening to something. Well, if you've never done it, go like 1.1. And you're like, 1.1, that's only 10% more. It probably doesn't change much at all. And if you work yourself up to 1.5 or even 2 or more, and then you go from 2 like back down to 1 all of a sudden, like, did everyone have a stroke? What happened here, right?
Yes, that's fair.
And so I've even gotten used to like theme music sounds a certain way, double speed.
Oh, that's
and
interesting.
And when it doesn't, I'm like, what show is this? Oh, yes. Right. Yeah. And it's not that everything's at double speed. That's what I used to do. But now things are a bit slower. Not always, but 1.5, 1.8.
So for you, does it depend on the content? Like fiction, you do faster. Nonfiction, you do a bit normal speed?
It actually depends on the specific content. So
okay.
I wouldn't say there's a fiction, nonfiction blend. So I'm listening to fiction because I want to enjoy the story.
Sure.
And there's something less enjoyable if it's just super fast.
Okay.
Because then I feel it's not actually proceeding as the pace. Like there is a world like just give me the information as quickly as possible. That's kind of what I'm doing my nonfiction for.
Sure.
But then if I'm less familiar with the content, and that could be a podcast I don't listen to often, or a lot of podcasts they interview different guests and the guests speak at different speeds.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm less familiar with the knowledge base of the guest. I can't just speed it up as quickly as I would otherwise. Or this issue. I've heard this one before, sort of thing. Like, a couple years ago on a similar topic with similar people discussing it, I have a sense of what the points they're going to raise, and I know some of the terminology. So then, fine, just go through it. I guess we're getting a world where there'll be AI summaries, to listen to the thing about it.
AI summaries tailored to your specific speed of understanding based on contextual clues that the AI infers about you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of AI, that's a nice segue we had there, Adam, is that I think for an average person, the ways in which they might most frequently encounter a super intelligent entity would be the AI systems that they're currently using sometimes. And it depends how they use them, of course. But there's a world where if you just ask these systems a question of any sufficient depth, they'll spit out an answer faster than you can read it.
Yep.
Which I think is just a glimpse of what it would be like to talk to or interact with someone who's so much smarter.
Yeah.
It's like, I just can't do that. Like, it's just, it's unreachable.
That's just one of the... It's one of the potential challenges of like a future superintelligence. Like they're not going to be interacting with you in real time because they'll be bored. So either they're just stopping and not doing anything or thinking of something else and then responding to you in a speed that you can appreciate. Or something else is going on. They can manage their own speed of thought or something like that. Whereas like talking with other humans, we all more or less, there's maybe a variance of like 50% up or down.
Of course.
We're kind of on the same speed here.
Broadly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The AI from the movies, like, are you talking to anyone else? Yeah, 1,000 people.
Oh, yeah. That was, that's her, I believe, and they do that one.
And so I also just rewatched Limitless, which this is the drug, and this in terms of show don't tell, the color scheme changes. There's a golden glow, his eyes are lighter blue, and they do try to show you how he's navigating this world with this enhanced ability too. It's broadly intelligence-based, but it almost looks like just someone who's a lot more energy, a lot more motivation, a lot more conscientiousness, and a lot more intelligence.
If I recall correctly, there's a lot. It's like focus and speed of thought are big factors as well.
Yes, exactly. You can but also problem solving, like everything. Yeah. Everything's boosted up. You can understand financial data. You can understand why people are doing things. You can see more possibilities.
Okay.
You feel more confident. It almost sounds like what people say is cocaine, but maybe real, because cocaine gives you the delusion of having all these things.
But you're not really.
Well, maybe. I don't think you are.
I don't know. I've never done cocaine.
No, me neither. But I think you sort of feel that way. Like you're super smart and you come with all these ideas and like, no, you're just high. And you think. Now, in that movie, when it's explained what the drug does, one of the characters says, well, you know how we only use 20% of our brain? Which I was like, 20%? The myth is always 10%. So just in case anyone hasn't heard, the 10% myth is false and the 20% myth is also false.
Mm-hmm. That guy must have thought he was twice as smart as everybody else.
Twice as percentage much, yes. So this is where you can use it all. That movie Lucy with Scarlett Johansson. You're like, so just because you can use more of your brain, which people already do, it doesn't mean you get, what, she had telekinesis at one point?
Well, yeah. So how do you gain abilities that are outside of the realm of possibility to a normal person? That movie didn't make much sense, but whatever.
But none of them do. Even Limitless and one of the works of fiction, it's like you can remember everything you ever read. That's one of the abilities you have.
Yeah.
And so when someone's like, what about this? And you can just sort of quickly pull something from 20 years ago that you weren't even fully aware of or you don't remember. And then you can relive interactions you've had with people at your disposal. So is such a world possible in the future? Well, it depends how technologically aided and enabled we are. There's a world where if your glasses are watching everything you see and it's recorded, you could then relive these moments. Or, of course, you could ask the AI any relevant things and it's just going to offer you suggestions, which, you have to defer and trust these things because you're not that smart enough, but you'll be very, very enhanced with some of these abilities. You run into someone on the street and then it's, the last time you spoke to this person, this issue came up. Yeah. So you might want to mention this. And that's, the skill that some people have. Like, how is your daughter, blah, 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 name, right? Or, your grandmother, she was sick in the hospital. How is Florence? You're like, that shows they care. And so some people do have these abilities and they hone them. I'm thinking mainly in the political domain because it's very important to connect with your constituents.
So you mean real people in the real world have kind of eidetic memory type of thing?
Well, the eidetic I think we know is false, but what I mean is the ability and or willingness that when you meet someone, you actually pay attention.
Oh, yeah.
You actually, believe it or not,
well, it's because you're, instead of thinking about what you're going to say or whatever,
yourself,
right?
Like you actually learn their name, their face, and you learn one or two things about them.
That's a good idea.
Now, in other contexts, I know when people are going through like the greeting line, if you're shaking hands with someone whispers in your ear, this person is this.
Oh, yeah.
Say something like this.
Like Smithers and Mr. Burns and when they're at the baseball game.
Sure, exactly.
Yeah.
But this is like, this is like the Prince of blah, blah, blah. And then these are the one fact you say that looks like you know something, right? So yeah, there's hacks all over the place. Maybe we're getting far afield. All I have to say is I just thought it was a decently interesting topic about how intelligence, both high and low, is shown in our various fiction and media. And clearly, because most people speak very well in TV and movies, that's one way of looking at it. When people don't, it's usually because they've had like a medical issue or it's part of the character. They have some sort of deficit of some type. But even super intelligent people are not usually portrayed as super intelligent all the time because it's not clear what that would be.
Yeah.
If you, listener, have any thoughts about depicting intelligence, high or low, in fiction that we left out, please let us know at trcpodcast.com.
And you can write in even if you're not intelligent, if you are intelligent. Like, we'll have to listen.
Spelling errors is not a problem.
Yeah.
Adam edits the show, so we both sound smarter than we are.
And if someone smarter edited the show, we might be able to look even smarter.
That'd be funny.
That'd be great.
Some super intelligence edits the show and just different voices with different people.
Yeah. He's like,
they were smarter.
I just dissected your show into like individual words and syllables, and I just put together better segments, and there you go.
It turns out you guys were the limiting factor. This is a different show.
You changed the name of the show? What? Okay.
And it gets more downloads.
It doesn't say that cuboid thing anymore. That was dumb.
There's more to life intelligence. There's relatability and fun. All right. Well, until next time, think better, act better.
Peace out, IQboids.
For show notes or to discuss this episode, visit our Facebook page and website at trcpodcast.com. For general inquiries or to send a topic or parody suggestion, email info@trcpodcast.com. Help support the show by leaving a review on iTunes and liking us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at TRC_podcast.
Outtakes. I'm going to provide feedback as an intelligent person who watches fiction.
Nicely done.
It makes me sound like a...
No, I think you can...
Is there a nicer way to say that? It doesn't
no, because
sound
you're comedy, which if you know the show, that'd be funny, right?
Yeah.
Will these things be possible? I can take the whole thing again because I think I can say it better. That's the other thing. Editing makes it sound better, so we can stick that in.
Sometimes.